This is a day that neither team would feel very good if they don't get their purpose accomplished. Both teams are playing about as well as they could to do it.
We're AMS. We make what it takes to renovate the body and raise the spirit. We make...
of 14.
Less than Chevy Caprice this year, comparably equipped.
Third and 1. Bradshaw throws. Touchdown.
And therefore act accordingly. He cannot establish the community standards until after. His only means of determining whether or not the material is obscene is after the fact, when, as in this case, a person is charged and brought before a jury, and then the jury is going to say it's obscene or it's not obscene.
Yes.
Oh, you got to put a place for him to answer.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. It's been answered by the Supreme Court of the United States and the Court of Criminal Appeals. So, if I can interpret that, why, it doesn't make any difference what I think.
Right. I think that's a good place to start.
Dr. Haverstraw, what I have here is Webster's 7th, New Collegiate 7th. Would you recognize it as...
In Oklahoma County, Oklahoma, on or about the 7th day of November, artistic, literary, political, or scientific value. In determining the
character of Mr. Norris and Mrs. Norris before you. Don't be fooled by that. You're really being asked to do your jury. Your duty.
You developed a test based on that, and they called it the Rorschach ink blot test.
The state is going to have...
Nobody forces these people to do anything. And to hang it on a mere clerk who has no control over what passes over that counter is a mind-boggling proposition. Are we going to impose on every clerk in every store in Oklahoma County the burden of reading everything that comes through, everything that passes over that county? That counter?
an overlay done. You're instructed that the state has offered
that once you apply your common sense, your good intelligence to these instructions, to what you already know, and to this book, that the conclusion you're going to come to is, if this isn't obscene, nothing is obscene.
Appreciate it, everyone. Thank you. I really think it's important if we could get this jury to reach a decision. I think it's important to the... I don't mean coerce them or anything like that, but I just wish they would give us a decision. I think Well, I would think the prosecuting authority of this county would want to know what is or is not obscene in the eyes of a jury. I think the people that sell material would want to know. Certainly the courts need to know what is and what isn't. I don't know what's obscene and what isn't, you know. I mean, it's not for me to decide. It's for a jury that's representing the contemporary standards of this community. And
11-1.
this court urges you to make every reasonable effort to arrive at a verdict if possible.
See how easy it is to protect yourself against flu? A lot of people think flu is just a bad cold, few aches and pains. Well, they're wrong. Influenza is serious business. During major flu epidemics, millions of people are sick and thousands die. Well, this year you can get protection. The vaccines are safe, easy to take, and they can protect you against flu. So roll up your sleeve. Protect yourself.
Picture yourself in a boat on a river with tangerine trees and marmalade skies. Somebody calls you, you answer quite slowly. A girl with kaleidoscope eyes. Cellophane.
The realistic approach sells, and stores are spending up to $400 for mannequins which have glass eyes and interchangeable parts. But even these can go out of style. It's an illusion of beauty that the stores are really selling. Sometimes a woman comes into a store, becomes enchanted with the look, and buys everything the mannequin is wearing. And that's where the fantasy pays off. Christy Myers, News Center 4.
Taking up the slack of any revenue that may be lost. Since the Democrat leadership in the House is refusing to respond to the people of this state and the obvious need for a tax cut and to limit the growth of state government, the Republican Party and the members of the House and Representatives and in the Senate have joined with the Republican State Committee to organize the circulation of an initiative petition to take the issue straight to the people for the full restoration of the federal income tax deduction.
Any efforts to exploit the slowness of the legislative process for political gain is regrettable, and it's unfortunate that we have those type of people in government.
Small one cut with the bullet.
All right.
Number 10. Oops. Now I'll erase you just a minute.
Go ahead.
Small.
Okay, go ahead. Turn the water off.
Up there?
Yeah.
That's lights. We had 3 rows.
You just have your one truck in the shop?
I'm responsible. OSDI.
Warm spot. Not hot, warm. I could put my hand up. Of course, I wasn't very tall, and we knew it was up in the attic.
What are we doing with one? What, on that wall over there?
Yeah.
We get parts there.
It had to be in that area, and by talking to these two boys, and Wayne, see, designated that it was in the area, so we come in from that direction and this direction with holes down on the ground. I had 2 firemen that had masks and everything, so they come up here and went up the stairway, and that's where they found the fire.
At the date of this filming, it's a cold, snowy day here in north central Oklahoma at Perry, so we're staying inside where it's warm to visit with Gene and Virginia Henches, who are the Oklahoma Farmer Rancher of the Month for January 1978. And Gene, can you tell us a little background about you and your wife as far as how long you've been here in this community?
I've lived on this place all of my life.
And how about you, Virginia?
I've lived in this area all my life.
What did you get married right out of high school, or did you start farming at that time?
Well, yes, I did start farming with my father right out of high school, but then I spent some time in the service.
You got married right before you went to the service?
Yes, we got married in October 1951, and then 3 days later I took off to the Army for a couple of years.
Well, then when you returned from the Army, did you start farming at that time?
Yes, we got us an apartment in town for a couple of months while we remodeled the old house here on this rented place. And after we got that remodeled, we moved out here, and we've lived here ever since.
What was it like as a young man to start farming? We talked earlier about a young man today trying to start farming. What were your feelings at the time you started in?
Well, I felt like that I liked the life that my parents had, and I thought that I'd like to have that same kind of a life.
Well, you've raised quite a family since then, 5 children. Virginia, can you give me their names and where they are right now?
Harvell is our oldest daughter, and she's 26 and lives in Enid. Harvey's 24, lives up the road a ways.
And he's farming.
And he's farming. And Harl is 23 and works in Perry. And Harlan is 13 in junior high, and Harlene is 7 in the 2nd grade.
So you still got some at home, but no grandchildren yet?
No grandchildren.
Right. Tell us a little bit, Gene, if you can, about your farming operation today, and maybe you could start by telling me some of the things as far as through the years. Did you have any occasions that were not exactly as you had planned since 1951? At the date of this filming, it's a cold, snowy day here in north central Oklahoma at Perry, so we're staying inside where it's warm to visit with Gene and Virginia Henches, who are the Oklahoma Farmer Rancher of the Month for January 1978. And Gene, can you tell us a little background about you and your wife as far as how long you've been here in this community?
I've lived on this place all of my life.
And how about you, Virginia?
I've lived in this area all my life.
Did you get married right out of high school, or did you start farming at that time?
Well, yes, I did start farming with my father right out of high school, but then I spent some time in the service.
You got married right before you went to the service?
Yes, we got married in October 1951, and then 3 days later I took off to the Army for a couple of years.
Well, then when you returned from the Army, did you start farming at that time?
Yes, we got us an apartment in town for a couple of months while we remodeled the old house here on this rented place. And after we got that remodeled, we moved out here and we've lived here ever since.
What was it like as a young man to start farming? We talked earlier about a young man today trying to start farming. What were your feelings at the time you started in?
Well, I felt like that I liked the life that my parents had, and I thought that I'd like to have that same kind of a life.
Well, you've raised quite a family since then, 5 children. Virginia, can you give me their names and where they are right now?
Harvell is our oldest daughter, and she's 26 and lives in Enid. Harvey's 24, lives up the road a ways.
And he's farming.
And he's farming. And Harl is 23 and works in Perry. And Harlan is 13 in junior high, and Harlene is 7 in 2nd grade.
So you still got some at home, but no grandchildren yet?
No grandchildren.
Right. Tell us a little bit, Jean, if you can, about your farming operation today, and maybe you could start by telling me some of the things as far as through the years. Did you have any occasions that were not exactly as you had planned since 1951?
Well, yes, we always have some of those kind of things that we don't like to remember, but they come and go. But farming has been more than we ever expected. It's been a good life for us.
What are your major commodities that you raise now, livestock and grain?
We raise wheat and alfalfa to support a cow herd of about 100 cows.
Well, now, as far as the economics of the cow herd now, it wasn't too good from 74 for a while, but it's changed around quite a bit today, hasn't it?
Yes, sir, it sure has. They're a good price now.
Do you find it better economically to feed your hay to your cattle and then market your hay through your calves?
Yes, primarily that's why we have alfalfa, to support the cow herd.
Right. Well, you have a beautiful 3-bedroom brick home here, and you had a little help in getting this thing started. Is that right? Did you draw the plans for it?
Yes, I did.
A lot of detail in those plans. Either one of you can answer that. Did you go into any, how hard was it really for you to prepare a set of plans for a home?
Well, it wasn't really very hard because I'd planned on building a home for 5 years, so I worked at it all the time.
Jean was telling me that you even went to the point of making little miniature furniture so that you could make sure that everything fit in the rooms.
Yes, so it would be the most comfortable.
Right.
She said it wasn't very hard, but she probably drew 5 or 6 plans complete before she got one she liked.
But if you know you're going to be the one living in it, it makes it a little bit different, doesn't it? As a farmer and a member of a community here, you've taken part in a number of things. I know you're going to be modest on me, but what are some of the things in the community that you've helped with through the years, Gene?
Well, probably the thing that I'm most happy about is that right after I got out of high school, there were a number of us boys that weren't going on to college. And we kind of got our heads together and organized what we called an out-of-school group. It was an organization whereby we could further our education in farming without going on to school.
And did it stay in existence for a while?
Yes, it's as far as that's concerned, it's still in existence. It's been a successful thing.
What about community activities other than that, things that you helped organize?
Well, with the help of a lot of people, we organized a rural fire department, which has been beneficial to lots of people, and it's self-supporting now. And just 7 or 8 years ago, we got the extension to the rural water district at Lucene, which brought running water to several farm homes.
It makes a lot of difference out here in a rural area. How about his work in Farm Bureau? He may not tell us as much as you would, Virginia. Has Gene been active in Farm Bureau?
Well, yes, pretty active.
And as I understand it, you helped to found the Farm Bureau for Noble County.
Yes, I was on the first board of directors and secretary of the first board of directors, and I was on that for a number of years. And it was interesting to start and be with the starting of an organization like that.
I can imagine so. Well, we want to congratulate you as Oklahoma Farmer Rancher of the Month, and also we want to take a look at some of your farming operation outside, perhaps go with you to feed a few cattle and see how you farm, even though there's some snow on the ground.
How thick's the ice here, Gene?
Well, last Sunday I cut this hole new, and that block of ice there was 9 inches thick.
In the lower income tax brackets, and if we're going to give tax relief, that's where we should be giving it, in the middle area, primarily because those people are the ones that are now bearing a disproportionate share of the cost of government.
I don't see that there's any way that we can provide a $21 million income tax cut and develop a pay-as-you-go capital improvement program and possibly provide some additional funding for education, particularly in higher education. Also, the recommendations of the governor in the area of teacher salaries does not even meet the 7% guidelines. The possibility of maybe an increase in salaries to teachers of perhaps $100 or $200. belt buckle.
Maybe she told me they tried it. This woman was screaming, help me find my baby. Like I say, she's real hysterical, screaming. She kept saying, grab me and I'll hold the arm, like, help me find my baby. And I can't find my baby. And I said, so well, I found her baby. I found a little kid and handed it out the window to some guy. And I don't remember getting her out the bus. But I remember some old man sitting on the bus. I helped him out the window. And some other people helped out the window, some kids. But she, I don't remember helping her out the window, but I remember after I got out myself, a guy had her and handed her to me. And I carried her across the road. We was up on top of the bank with her then. Carried her across the road and put her on top of the hood of a car. And she kept hollering, I want my baby, how's my baby? And I said, your kid. I mean, at 12 o'clock they had it on. And said it's going to get me away home, and I told him that, I didn't want to take the bus home.
Okay, hey, super, that's great. I will tell them right now. Thank you. Carla?
Yes, sir.
There's been a new law passed and we don't have to charge sales tax on pop bottles anymore.
Oh.
Effective immediately. Is that
Immediately?
super?
Yeah.
Okay.
More confusing.
Huh?
More confusing.
No, it's simpler.
Simpler.
Yeah, so there's really more than one tax on it. Just triple and double, and if the pop bottle was used over once or twice, which most of them were used 9 or 10 times, they were getting charged tax 9 times. Just wasn't fair.
This is the only situation that I know personally where a public official is allowed to render public services on public time with public facilities and personally keep the monies.
I got a fire in here. Can you get it out in here?
It's right in there in the hall. Here.
Put it in the hall.
Here's another one in.
Hey, Bear. Bear? Hey, Grizz. Hey, Grizz! I don't know, maybe he's not gonna come out. Yeah. Bear? Ah, here he comes.
There's the Grizzly.
Groundhogs are rather small and mealy, and it's an awful big chance that they won't see their shadow or will see their shadow. Of course, the Grizz standing there, G.H. Bear, weighs about 600 pounds. Now, if there had been any sunlight at all, he definitely would have seen his shadow, so there was no chances taken this year at all. So this is why we can claim that we definitely have the animal that has decided the weather for the next 6 weeks, and we'll see what happens.
Is that just Oklahoma City?
We're, as far as I'm concerned, entertain just legislation. And I strongly emphasize that if there were any wrongdoing in that or any program that they might have, that I'd never ask them to waive in consideration of prosecution or whatever, if there's wrongdoing. If there simply is a bookkeeping problem that we didn't keep adequate records, and they think that the funds were handled okay, I mean, honestly, but just not adequately kept, that I would ask them to forgive that and to let us start from scratch. And they told me that the people that I talked to told me that they would take my request as an official request and under advisement and would be back in touch.
We have news that, General Heiser is still there. 2,000 new military advisor has been sent down there at the time that U.S. Sort of claiming that they have pulled out all the dependents. And besides that, more than that, 60 new CIA top official members have been sent down there to Iran. And so something is in the making. The main reason behind that is that, all political alternatives have failed, and they have no other choice rather than staging this coup, and this is going to be a direct coup by the U.S. government.
principle is involved as to where the relief is going, I think that the taxpayer is either victim or beneficiary. And I think the middle and lower income taxpayer is a beneficiary under our proposal and would be a victim under the Republican millionaire tax relief petitions.
I, Delbert L. Ham,
hereby declare under oath
hereby declare under oath
that I will of Independent School District, Oklahoma,
County, Oklahoma,
that I will faithfully set office and obey the Constitution
and obey the
taken into consideration or
of resources and aspects of the addendum which would like me to, what you may have to say.
Ms. Williams.
Today would be in-service activities that would be specifically designed by
I answer the question when they say, I don't want my daughter to be drafted. I say very simply, I don't want my...
Well, that...
Woman cannot carry 90-pound articles around. And I worked on the Shackley building, and there's a woman out there that's a carpenter's helper. And as a carpenter's helper, I've seen her out there wearing boots, walking in mud knee-deep. And when the men were exhausted, this woman was just about to fall in her tracks. And one man asked her, he said, how come you're doing this kind of work? She said, I like the wages. And then I've seen women out there sweeping floors, doing other manual labor, just breaking their bodies down. And then I've seen other women, one time out shoveling asphalt paving, a real nice-looking blonde lady out trying to shovel asphalt. And then I got to thinking about it, and I thought about my own wife and daughters. I have 3 daughters, and I don't want my family to ever do that kind of work. That's a man's job.
She was taken to a room on 2 East, away from labor and delivery. Bleeding and contractions had stopped on 8/14 at that time. At 12:20 p.m., blood during this course of the bleeding problem, and I think she was given and I can see no place on this record where he...
This time we'll offer into evidence Taylor Exhibit number 29, charts being incomplete.
Surely they speak for themselves. The charges, if we're talking about the paper that was passed out.
The community would agree that it is time Mr. Bleed used it. She was treated with cortisol during the course of the hospital.
With the increasing incidence of arson in the state of Oklahoma and across the nation, that it's time that we in the legislature and the people of the state of Oklahoma declared war on the arsonist. It is the most insidious crime, the most evil crime, the most vicious crime. And one of the things that is being done by this bill is to say that we will step up the penalty.
Okay, sir, just a moment. I have another line. Hold on. Street Division, this is Angie. May I help you? And your address, Mrs. Taylor?
Right here, clean that up. Yeah.
Keep federal funds from being used to subsidize abortions. A cool note, many of your advocates
must pay for abortions is strictly legislative. The Holocaust ought to have taught us that if you take morality out of law, you're left with force as the only arbiter between right and wrong. Our human rights policies indicate that we view man as something special and entitled to dignity and respect and certain minimum considerations by the state. And certainly executing people because they're innocently inconvenient should not be among the actions proposed and supported and funded and tolerated by America.
Congressman,
And then in January of 1976, you recruited Lavert Graham and hired him as Director of Business Affairs. And then you, a week later, recruited Brian Kinney and hired him as Business Manager.
The President recommended both of those individuals and concurred completely.
I understand that, but you recruited them.
That is true, at his request.
Well, now, isn't it a fact during that period of time, Mr. Chesney, from the time you've been involved at Langston University, that the President has had little input or little to say about who was employed in that business office, and it was in fact run by you?
No, sir, that is not a fact, Senator.
So you became the recruiting agent for business personnel at the request of the President?
On those two men at that one time.
Yeah, there's no question that desegregation had an effect on the system, a very profound effect. I think there are some encouraging signs from the last year or two, and that there certainly are some things that are happening now that are starting to turn things around in terms of the quality of the program. And I believe that every child can learn, black or white, rich or poor, and that we have an obligation in the public system to provide those opportunities for all children.
I feel comfortable in earmarking the revenues derived from cigarettes for capital improvements program, because that has been the precedent that's been set for many years, Senator Schuline. And this will give us a source of revenue to have an ongoing pay-as-you-go capital improvements program.
The beer industry has enjoyed a favored position under our tax laws for 25 years. They've managed to get themselves a nice little flat fee. Most states have a larger excise tax on beer than we have. It runs 3% to 7%, the highest sales tax on beer. Beer, to me, falls in at least the luxury category with wine, whiskey, and hard beer.
The business of the Senate being public business, and the fact in our judgment that our Senate employees should be above reproach, their actions should be above reproach, their backgrounds and qualifications, their credentials should be unquestioned, that we have the public's business to perform, it should be performed without any suggestion of impropriety, and the fact that we have to appear and discuss a request for a resignation of a person who is unqualified for the position, who is paid the highest Senate salary paid any employee, and who has embarrassed the state Senate by his background about which we knew nothing. And this is what distresses us, the fact that he is unqualified for the position, and he was hired without our knowledge.
I don't think that until the day arrives when you can have a concerted effort by a number of states to increase the speed limit, I don't think that one state alone is going to be successful. And I have never agreed with the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, particularly on interstate highways. But I don't think that we would be successful, one state taking action to go back to 65 miles an hour. I think the end result would be that we would lose the federal funds.